Despite the historical narratives around it, Donald Trump should be hoping for high voter turnout in the 2024 presidential election. What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American, back in with a new video, and today it is time we talk about the 2024 presidential election. And everyone, this is the final official video for 2023. Yes, I'll have my year in review video out later, but this is the final video of this year that's actually focused on an actual topic. So, thank you all so much for the new year, but I wanted to do one final video detailing, in my opinion, the biggest thing to look out for next year for the presidential election. And in my opinion, and I've been saying this for a couple months now, next year could very well have one of the biggest political realignments in American history. And I know that's crazy to say, but even CNN is starting to admit, hey, something's happening here with Donald Trump and his new coalition that he's building. And put it simply, it is changing how everyone should think of next year. Because there's a lot of historical evidence that people are using for next year to prove why Trump is going to lose or Trump's going to win. Well, I will say this. I think next year is going to break virtually every metric for anything. And we'll get to that in a second. But first, before we continue with today's video, I hope you enjoy these type of videos. If you do, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Guys, just for $1 a month, you can join Real American. This is the best way to support the daily content that we all know and love. So I hope and recommend you join the channel today. Alright, everybody. Now, like I said, next year is going to be absolutely chaotic. And not enough people, I think, understand how chaotic we're talking about. I think a lot of people understand that it's going to be crazy, but what we're seeing in the polling data, what we're seeing in many other metrics this year, this is stuff we have never seen before, especially from a Republican. So let's get into it. Republican Donald Trump is in a better position against Democrat Joe Biden now than at any point during the entire 2020 campaign. The former president leads the current president in more than his fair share of polls of registered voters, including a number of key swing states. But it seems plausible that these initial polls may be underestimating Biden's position, which I can see the argument that there's a lot of people that may not want to admit that they want Biden again, because, let's face it, Biden is not liked. I mean, this guy is absolutely despised. I don't care what people say on Twitter. Every poll for strongly approve versus strongly disapprove, it's like 40% strongly disapprove and like 10% strongly approve. That means people that do even like Biden, they're like, he's all right. Biden's position is not good. And it could be a possibility where they're underestimating support, but even if they are by 2 points in the national polling, Trump would still win the popular vote right now. And a change from the usual expected dynamic in which Democrats are supposed to do better with higher turnout, Biden may benefit when pollsters look at likely voters instead of all registered voters. And that's the thing that we have been saying for months now. Something's happening with the polling that we have just never seen before. Put another way, Trump may do better in an election in which turnout is higher, and that's why this is big. If for those that don't know, registered voter polls, they are a larger sample of the general electorate. But the problem with registered voter polls is a lot of those voters they do poll, they're probably not going to vote. They're low propensity voters that even in a presidential year, they're probably not going to vote. Why do you think in 2020, registered voter polls had Biden up by 10, which was off by a lot, but then likely voter polls, which is a smaller share of the electorate, well, guess what? They were more accurate, not by much better, but there were some that were spot on. Because likely voter polls try to guess the electorate. Registered voter polls, they kind of do that, but they don't look for how likely someone is to vote. And that just means they're polling basically anybody that's registered and that's willing to talk to them. Take a look at the New York Times/Siena College poll released earlier this month. Trump had a 2-point advantage among registered voters. Biden was up 2 points among likely voters. Both those are within the margin of error, but it's a notable 4-point shift towards Biden when comparing likely and registered voters. For those, and again, I alluded to this earlier, this has never happened. I mean, let's put it this way. Republicans have never did good with registered voter polls, at least in the modern era. Because, guess what? They were the party of low turnout for all those years. That's why Trump did better with likely voter polls in 2020, in 2016. Because it is a lower turnout electorate. Or I should say, yeah, that's what the polls are. But this time we're seeing something completely different. Registered voter polls, which indicate high turnout, or at least higher turnout than likely voter polls, they have Trump doing better, which has never happened before. And this is why people are starting to think, hey, if turnout is very high next year, which it probably will be, there is a good possibility Trump is going to do a lot better than past Republicans. Because the reason that this is true is, who was a Democrat voter 20 years ago? For the past 20 years or so. Really before Trump. It was white, it was some white working class voters, right? Which they're not high turnout voters at all. But it was also, or Democrats I should say, these are the Democrat voters for before Trump. White working class voters, Hispanics, African Americans, and other minority groups. The thing with those groups are, they are low turnout. They don't vote. And I should say white working class, it was more 50-50, but you get the point. That the voters that Democrats appealed to for years, they have always been lower turnout. Low propensity voters, they don't vote. That's why in 2010, Republicans did great. They had a red tsunami, but it was one of the lowest turnout elections ever. Same through 2014. But the high turnout elections, before Trump at least, Republicans got absolutely walloped across the board. I mean, 2012 was good enough turnout. 2008, decent turnout. Democrats crushed Republicans. You start looking at it, and turnout's been an advantage for Dems for years. But Trump is starting to change that. Even the polling that usually undersampled him, he's doing better than he's ever done before. Now, I don't want to make too much of a deal out of one poll, but another pollster found some analogs. An average of the last two Marquette University Law School surveys show the former president up by 4 points among registered voters, while Biden and Trump were tied among likely voters. As with the Times data, this is a 4-point shift towards Biden when going from registered to likely voters. An October Grinnell College poll conducted by Ann Seltzer similarly found that 2020 Biden voters were 4 points more likely to say they would definitely vote than 2020 Trump voters. Which, that could explain a lot. But if that's the case, that they're saying that Biden voters are more likely to vote, which I think is wrong. I don't think it's going to happen. This really may say that Trump's going to do a lot better than polling is expecting. Because, do you think Biden voters are more enthusiastic to vote than Trump voters? Because that's what the polling is saying, and I gotta tell you, I think that's just wrong. You know, it is early, and I know that, hey, you know, it's polling or whatever, but I would assume to be equal, you know, if that. I don't think it's a 4-point gap between Biden and Trump voters for enthusiasm. We've seen in polling that Democrats are not enthusiastic, so how are Biden voters more enthusiastic than Trump voters? This would be quite the shift from what had historically been seen. Normally, Republicans gain about 2 points when going from registered to likely voters. That's what I just said, by the way. That indicates that low turnout races, or lower, tended to help Republicans. Higher turnout races, Democrats, they won. Because Republicans, when they have low turnout, that's all their voters. After that, it's just all Democrats. That's why 2014 was a red tsunami. But that was because Democrats just didn't vote. And Republicans got every voter they had at the time out to vote, which is like 40 million. It is possible, of course, that the recent polling data is just statistical noise, which we've been seeing for 4 or 5 months now. I don't think this is noise anymore. I don't think that this is a fluke. If it was one or twice, yeah. But basically every poll is showing the same thing. The 2024 polling does make sense, though, in the context of both the recent elections as well as the coalitions being put together by Biden and Trump ahead of a potential rematch. Democrats have liked to point out they've done really well in special elections over the last year. Indeed, Democratic candidates are running about 4 points better in special state legislative and federal elections of 2023 than Biden did in those same districts. Those special elections, however, and I'm glad that this guy's bringing it up. Who is this guy? I gotta look him up. This is actually good stuff. Usually have lower turnout. Contrast those special elections with the regularly scheduled Virginia state legislature and elections held earlier in November. Control of both the state's lower and upper house was at stake. And while Democrats won control of both, Virginia is also a state won by 10 points and Biden by 10 points in 2020. Democrats beat Republicans by less than 2 points in the popular vote for both houses. That's more than 8 points worse than Biden did in 2020. Likewise, Republicans won the House popular vote by about 3 points in 2022, a 6-point shift from the House popular vote in 2020, when Democrats won it by 3. Midterms have much higher turnout than special elections. I mean, you just start looking at this, and there's something happening. This isn't a fluke at this point when even CNN is admitting that, hey, what's going on here? I mean, you have polling data, you have popular vote data, you have state legislative data that shows, yeah, Democrats have done a lot better in low turnout specials, but they have been doing way worse in higher turnout races, about 8 to 10 points worse than Biden. So there's something, I mean, this is not just, one fluke or whatever. This is consistent. And you just start looking at it and you realize the voters that are voting Trump more are low propensity voters that Democrats won 20 years ago. White working class voters, voters without a college degree, minorities. Trump is polling better with all those groups, while Biden is polling better with whites with a college degree, which they vote in everything. So this is what's happening. We are seeing possibly the biggest realignment in American history. So we gotta see what happens, but if this continues, which I think will, we could be seeing a coalition that was unheard of 20 years ago. That the party's essentially flipped. And I'm not saying minorities are going to vote majority Republican because, that's just not going to happen. But I think if it's more 50-50, that's a big deal, especially if Republicans are doing good enough with white working class voters. We just got to see, though, but man, this is not what I expected for this year. I've been thinking about it for a while, but the past 2 to 3 months really has, I guess, woken me up to, yeah, there's something here. And even CNN is starting to admit there's something happening. Something with the turnout is changing that's benefiting Republicans if it's higher. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy this video, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Thank you so much. Godspeed to all of you.